All right. So thank you everyone who actually managed to join. We're very happy to start this conference on cybersecurity. We have got a very, very special guest today, which is Samuele De Tomas. And he is really someone knowledgeable, and we're really happy to have him. I just wanted to say that we have been invited this year to the DigitalMEET, which is a project promoted by the foundation and also the Talent Garden in Padua. And basically, this is a digital meet, for meetings, events, insights related to the world of digital, ICT, and of course the web. And we're gonna have this conference on cybersecurity. So I'm just gonna start by letting Samuele introduce himself.
Okay, I was on mute, of course. So hello, everyone, and I'm Samuele De Tomas, and thank you, really thank you for inviting me here. And I have to make a little disclaimer before I begin. I'm here in my personal capacity. What I'm saying is not the vision of the NATO CCD-COE, and anything I'm saying needs to be attributed solely to my person. That's it. So yes, as I just told you, or maybe if you have been introduced in the flyer, in the poster that the Venice Diplomatic Society have been publishing in their pages, in the social pages, I am collaborating with the NATO CCD-COE since 3 years ago. So I started 3 years ago collaborating with this think tank, which is basically people gathering in one place studying one thing, a topic. And in this case is people studying aspects of cybersecurity. And this NATO think tank is not part of the NATO headquarters, so it's outside the chain of command of NATO, but still it's recognized by NATO as, let's say, a certified think tank of people, who, if they need some help of understanding what is cybersecurity in some specific cases, or how international law applies to cyberspace, or how states are interacting, what is happening out there in cyber, they go there and say, okay, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Do you want to write a paper on this? Do you want to write a paper on that? And all the, NATO is made of states, which are called allies. So it's an alliance, military alliance. And if they need something in the cyber realm, they would go to the NATO CCD-COE and they would say, okay, so I need this. Can you study this topic for me? And then give me your findings. So yeah, it's pretty much it. It's a think tank, a certified think tank, certified by NATO, of course. But it's outside the chain of command of NATO. So we have a freedom to discuss everything with an open mind, and we are not bound by quite anything. So we can use our imagination, our thoughts, and we can put our best efforts to study some specific aspects of cybersecurity. But I didn't want that to be kind of introduction of my, I just want to introduce a little bit myself. I'm here because I was an alumni of Ca Foscari. I was studying my bachelor degree and my laurea magistrale, which is the 2 years master in Venice. I was doing languages, and then I specialized in international relations. And since I really loved international law, okay, I specialized in international law and security after with a Master of Laws in the University of Glasgow in Scotland. And since I didn't have a background of law, it was really hard at the beginning because it's you do have to have some kind of jurisprudence background. Sorry about my bad pronunciation of that, but in order to do that. In Italy, it wouldn't have quite impossible to do a Master of Law in law, of course, because you did have to have some kind of exams of, mandatory exams of law, which is not just international law, but maybe it's European law, it's, trade law, whatever. So yeah, I had to search for foreign options to deepen my knowledge about international law. But really, both of my dissertation were about international law, and the only thing they care outside, in the foreign universities, that you know what you're talking about. So they don't really care about, oh, you don't have, the right background for this master. No, they really care about what you propose, what you study, and how is your kind of aim for the future and for the future study. What do you want to deepen and whatever. So really, it's more practical. But yeah, aside from that, let's go back to the cybersecurity thing. So what, it's difficult to define what is cybersecurity. It's if we have to have a kind of definition, is that cybersecurity is everything, application of technologies, processes, controls, and I would add also the people who are working in cyber, which are very important for securing the digital data that we put on the internet. Imagine the cloud, OneDrive, Google, the Google Cloud. Imagine Google Drive. Imagine whatever cloud you want. You are basically giving information to the cloud, right? When you store information in the cloud, you're basically taking your personal information and making them, always available, okay, everywhere. But there's one other side of the coin, because usually when we care about something, we keep it really close to us, right? So imagine money. We have our wallet. Our wallet is everywhere. It's with us. It's really close to us. It's in our pocket. Our IDs, our identity cards are in our pocket. Our passport, they're always in our pocket. But imagine if you have to, usually we all have a copy of our IDs and we store them in the cloud, okay? But the cloud is far away from us. It's really far away from us. So we have to, at some point, there have been some people, okay, that were trying to get, some kind of advantage in stealing this information, okay, this data that we are keeping far away from us. It's the same as having somebody pickpocketing us. A pickpocketer is basically taking our wallet, stealing our wallet, right? And everything that's inside, it's lost, okay? It's the same in cybersecurity. There are ways to secure the data that we put on the internet out there. And it's really important thinking about the data as our personal data, because everything that we input in the cloud, on the internet, it's basically our personal identity. Everything that we express on the internet is ours, right? And we are just making it available to everybody. Imagine Facebook, social networks. Every thought is always available to people because we decided to make those data available to people, right? But imagine if somebody wants to exploit those information that we are making available to everybody. If somebody is really active on Facebook, on social, we can know everything on what they're doing, who they are with, who is, the friends that they're getting along with, who is having a fight with whom, where I'm having holidays, when I'm leaving home, when, it's, and geolocalization is making everything worse as well, because when I take a picture, I'm not just saying, oh, I'm here in Miami Beach, but also my device is telling everybody where I am. So it's quite people really don't understand sometimes that these are really personal data that are, that we are making available to everybody really easily on the internet. Cybersecurity is just securitizing this kind of data. Processes to understand what criminals, for example, want to do with this data. Of course, if criminals can get our PIN code and our, the PIN code and our credit card, they can, steal money from us or whatever, or they can lure us on a fake web page to input our login letters and numbers, so they can steal them from us. They can pretend to be us, okay? They can pretend to be me, and they can do whatever they want with those data. So yeah, so imagine a private business that has all this data stored somewhere in a physical server, and they're always 24/7 threatened by somebody that is trying to get in those servers and getting all the data that they want. And how can you and to make you understand how precious these data are, how would you put a price? How can you put a price, for example, on your personal data, for example, of where have you been born and what day have you been born, or your fiscal code, on those kind of data? If I have to ask you, what is the price that you will put on this data, you cannot really answer to this question, because for example, there is no price in somebody that is owning your fiscal code and your name and where you're living, because with those data, you can use those data, for example, to start a contract a contract with an electricity company, for example, right? And they can pretend to be you, okay? Because you don't need to be, in person to start a contract with an electricity company. So they can do whatever they want with your personal data. So it's really the same as some thief that is pickpocketing your wallet. But when people don't see the real effects of a real pickpocket, a real thief that is pickpocketing your wallet, they don't see this as a menace. They don't see this as a threat. Think about, for example, ransomware. So basically, ransomware are a type of malicious software that are basically blocking your data. So you're using your computer, okay? And at some point, your computer goes black, and a window comes to your desktop saying, okay, if you want your device to running again, or if you want your data back, you need to pay us, okay? So, in the private sector, usually the private sector pays, okay, because they think, okay, this is the quickest way, for example, to get my data back. But how can you be sure that they didn't make a copy of those data? I mean, criminals, they didn't make a copy of those data. Or how can you be sure that those data that you are getting back are really, haven't been modified, for example? How can you be sure that those data won't be used again in the future to, asking another ransom to you, asking more money to you, maybe in 2 years? It's really difficult to pinpoint these things, because really the problem is that data are intangible, right? Data are not tangible things. So, but these are personal data. So just because those data are not printed, or just because those data are not in our IDs card, printed in our IDs card, it doesn't mean that they don't have a value. They have a value because they represent us, but they represent us in another way, right? So they represent us in a digital way. It's the same as like saying an expression, or posting something on Facebook. Sometimes we just post things on Facebook without thinking. But why? Because we don't see the other people on the other side of the screen, right? So we think that we are alone in that moment, but actually the whole world is seeing you. So imagine to say, the same thing. People are posting stuff, but I would challenge those people, maybe those mean people that are saying mean things to other people, to say that out loudly to real person. Maybe they don't have the courage because they see the other people. They can, watch their reaction. But it's the digital world. It's making everything more, I'm not saying fake, but less tangible. So you don't see reactions. You don't see how people are, kind of responding to this kind of posts, to this kind of things, and it's really difficult to understand the effects or bad behavior in the web, right? And the problem is that also some criminal activities are not even categorized right now. So basically, there are no laws to categorize the crimes that some hackers are doing out there, are making out there. So ransomware, you need new laws to categorize, this kind of threats, for example. And so it's really difficult. Everything is really, really in development, and states don't know where to go. They need to, get together, understand the problem, and in cyber there are no boundaries, no limits. So if a state has suffered some kind of cyber attack, you can imagine that maybe tomorrow the neighboring states, or maybe another state on the other side of the world, would suffer the same attack, because cyber attackers are they don't have a clear target. They're just randomly choosing the weakest link, right? They're choosing the system that are not securitized. They're choosing the system where they can easily get in, okay, and steal information. They don't care what kind of information. Every information out there, of course, there are more important information. There are information that are more important than others, but that's another issue. But they just care about getting in the system, which is not secure, and they have some kind of tools at their disposal to get in the server and taking the data outside. And then they want to sell that. And with those money that they can make, they can grow bigger. They can, attract more people to work for them, right? So, and they can become a real kind of corporation, a really private actor that is doing cyber attacks as a service or something. So yeah, it's kind of a weird. But this is just a general overview of what cybersecurity is. But cybersecurity is more than that. Because I told you, I was just telling you about the private sector. So I was just telling you about a company that, find itself victim of a cyber attack. I'm not going into specific details, but
excuse me, Samuele, I actually wanted to ask you something.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you mind telling us exactly what is the private and the public sector? Because for some people might be clear, but for others not really. So
yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. So the private sector is basically all the businesses. Imagine the shops, all the non-governmental activities like municipalities, like foreign ministry, all the non-governmental activities, those are private sector. So business, manufacturer, consumer, Amazon is private, right? Google is private. Microsoft is private. But for example, a foreign ministry is not private, it's government, right? The consumer association for the protection of the customer is a governmental entity. So, and then the economy, Ministry of Finance, and whatever, those are governmental entities. So basically, we see that while the private, okay, needs to give you some services in exchange of whatever money, for example, they have to secure your data. that you store in their server. For example, if you make an order on Amazon, they have to secure the transactions that you make with them. So they should have some kind of standard of security while you are buying something from them on the internet, right? And they have to secure your data, for example, your name or your registration and all the contacts that you put there. They have a kind of, let's say, duty to protect this data. But as we have seen with cyber means, everything that we put on the internet, it's really far from us. And we have to kind of, we don't realize, but we have to trust Amazon that they are good enough to protect our data, right? But when something bad happens, how can we put a price on the data that they stole from us? Amazon says they were too good and they managed to get in our server and you know, steal your personal details. But is that enough for you? I mean, yes, you apologize, but you know, I don't care if you apologize. They stole my data. And I don't know where those data are on the internet. They're everywhere. Maybe they made a 1,000 copies of those data. You know, they sold it everywhere on the black market or whatever. So the governmental sector at the same time realized that these kind of cyber intrusions in the private sector were happening too often. So the state itself, the nation that is making the law, you know, through politics and through analyzing what, you know, the new trends and emergence technologies and stuff like that, new technologies, they are analyzing this kind of trends and they're saying, okay, private sector, if a breach happens, you need to alert your customer. So if a breach of data happens, you need to alert customers. But alert is not enough. You will get a fee. Okay, this is the European Union that is saying, but imagine that it's a governmental entity. It's basically prescribing that if somebody is stealing data from you, you will get also a really big fine because you have to secure those data. It's your duty to secure your data because your customer are trusting on you, not only when they buy things from you, but also when you store things. You store their personal details. So you should protect your customer personal details, but not just apologizing, but setting up higher standards of cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is really everything from understanding what a ransomware is, from technical guys who are programming your firewall or maybe setting up your servers, or just people that are studying what Italy is requiring, for example, for a private sector, a business to do in case of data breach happens. When criminals steal something, you have a process. You have processes to respect. You have to report the breach, and if those malicious actor that did, steal your data, are very kind of, you can recognize them. They're very powerful, very famous. You have to report to the central government that this breach happened, and these were the people that went in my servers and steal this thing. So at the beginning, what I want to tell you is that at the beginning, these kind of processes didn't exist. So if a breach was happening, nobody would have told you. Nobody would have told you. I think it's just 2 years ago that if a data breach happens, you will get an email from, I don't know, from Amazon telling you, oh, your data has been stolen. But this was not existing 6 or 7 years ago. Nobody would have told you that your data, somebody went in my system and stole your data. But you, as I told you before, this is the same thing as a thief taking your wallet from your pocket. But for that thing, you just report those things to the police, right? But on the internet, these kind of processes didn't exist at the beginning. And this is insane because so many personal data have been out there in the black market for a long, really, really long time. And some entities didn't even know that people stole those data, those personal data, because they didn't have the means to recognize these breaches, okay? So basically some actors were going into, some governmental servers because usually private have more money, so they can, have more protection, they can secure better their IT environment. But at the beginning, this was it was not even compulsory because there was no law telling the private, the consumers, and not even the governments that the data that you put on the cloud have been stolen. So really, it's everything. It's really new. So everybody is analyzing the problems, but to make new laws, it really takes a long time. And for what concerned the public sector, what basically I am studying while I'm researching for the NATO CCD theory is basically how states interact in cyberspace, how states are using the internet, cyberspace to spy on other states, for example. So imagine espionage. So a spy, imagine James Bond movies. James Bond was going somewhere, usually a foreign country, personally, so physically, to do something, maybe steal information, maybe kill somebody, okay? But with cyber, something changed. You don't even have to, go out from your home to steal some data or to maybe kill somebody as well, because you can do that through, cyber operation. I can steal some really sensitive information by staying here, sitting here, behind my desktop. Okay, it's the same thing as a spy going in a foreign country and stealing data, maybe in a foreign embassy, let's say. Things have been really, really bad at some point that states said, okay, so what should we do? Because we need to put some limits to this. Because if also because of the gravity of the details stolen or the personal information or sensitive information stolen. So maybe imagine a spy that has to risk his life just for maybe one sheet of paper. But with cyber, you don't have to risk your life, and you are comfortably in your home, and you don't have to steal just one sheet of paper. You just steal 60 gigabytes of data, which is basically maybe an entire library of data. So this changed throughout the years, and states didn't know where to go with that. So basically, the NATO CCD COE started this project with which is called the Tallinn Manual, which is basically the instructions of course, it's not a binding instrument, but basically is giving an opinion, a view, a very, thorough view with experts of international law, technical people, hackers as well, but because they need to know first how the internet works in order to make laws that could work to regulate the interaction that states have with each other. And for interaction, I'm saying operations, cyber operation. Maybe this cyber operation just stealing data, maybe I'm just modifying some data, or maybe I'm influencing what people think about one person, okay? So imagine that you are running some elections in your country, and some country, with the help of bots, which basically are some kind of fake accounts on social media and stuff, they are like influencing how people see one of the candidates running the election by spreading fake news. Is this a cyber operation? Yes, it's a cyber operation because you use cyber means to influence people, okay? But, you know, but propaganda has always been out there. Imagine if I'm a chief of a state and I'm saying, okay, I like the guy that is running that country. Of course, I cannot say, you know, name of the country because maybe somebody would get offended. But imagine people that are supporting chief of states that are supporting somebody else. Is that illegal? No, it's not illegal. This is just propaganda, and propaganda is, you know, is a kind of legal in a sense because nobody can, you know, can put a tape on my mouth and say, you know, you cannot express your opinion. I am expressing your opinion. I like that guy. I like that guy. But in this way, you are influencing. However, with cyber is different because with cyber, you can influence not just one people, you can influence everybody in the world at the same time, okay? And just with less efforts, right? Because you're just spreading news, which are maybe fake news or made up news or edited news that would resemble reality to make, you know, them more credible. And yeah, so basically we are studying how international law applies to this cyber operation. And international law is just a big word, but basically international law is the rules that states needs to be bound in their relations. So international law are the rules of the game. Imagine in the international relation as the table of your game, and then you have, you know, states that are the chalks that are, you know, the coins that you're playing with, and then you have to respect the rules of the game. But in cyber there have been no rules, and they still are not there. They're like states are starting to, you know, express themselves on how they want to behave in cyber. But if you have such a powerful tool at your disposal, imagine you're an intelligence agency. So basically the agencies of your 007 guys, okay, your James Bond agency. And you have all these guys that are really good at doing their IT and computer stuff. Do you want to limit their skills? No. If I am a state, I would never limit the skills of my intelligence agencies. So that's why states are really, really kind of skeptical in being bound to laws in cyber. Okay, and so it's difficult to, you know, put limits on what states are doing or doing not in cyber. Of course, if a state is poisoning the water supplies of another state using a cyber operation, yes, that's really bad. You should do that because you can expect a reaction from the victim state because this is really bad. You basically, even though there are no thresholds written down on paper, you clearly surpassed this threshold. You clearly surpassed, even unofficially. So you would expect that the victim state would do something to the other state, which is the same gravity as you did before by poisoning their water system. But there is nothing out there that is basically saying and putting a limit to this. And there are just unofficial threshold, unofficial red lines. You should not kill somebody with cyber operation. But you know, sometimes in cyber, people don't even know who made that cyber operation, who ran that cyber operation, because you know, anonymity is one thing in cyber. You can hide your identity in cyber. But at the same time, state actors are using non-state actors, so private agencies, to do their dirty work. Okay, so the state, I didn't do that, I didn't do that, but they did. And you know, international law works just for states generally. Of course, there are cases where if you can say that, okay, that state helped, or sorry, that state was behind the acts of that private agency. Of course, it's the same as the states did the malicious act. But in general, you can hide your identity and you can use private actors doing your cyber operation, for example, your malicious cyber operation.
Now,
So it's really nice field and really developing at the moment.
I just wanted to mention something because you just talked about the gravity of the current problem, and you said that people are not really aware of this. But you also talked the whole time, you actually said it several times, that there is actually a lack of a protecting mechanism to protect citizens and people. So I just would like to ask you, how fast can our data be stolen? And what can we do, normal citizens, on a daily basis to protect ourselves?
That's a really great question. I mean, data, if a device is really unprotected, you can get really easily into a device and steal their data, especially if you get a malware that gives like a Trojan or something like that, that gives you basically a bridge between their computer and your device, so they can basically walk in and out from your device and just steal the data, or seeing real time what you're typing, who are you calling and stuff like that. But usually if you are nobody, so if you're not just like a real famous target, you would not get this kind of malware, this kind of malicious software. But think about journalists. Many journalists got hit by a spyware, which is the malicious software that I've just told you. So basically, spyware is spying on your device and real time giving back information to the hacker, and they can copy everything. They even can command your device from distance. Okay, so imagine journalists. So for states in some part of the world, journalism is really, people that are working journalism are really in danger sometimes, because they cannot express freely and they cannot give their opinion. Even though you don't like their opinion, everybody should be free to express themselves. Okay, but in some part of the world this is not the case. So these people are really in danger, right? Because they have been really spied, and there has been a case with the Pegasus spyware. I don't know if you are aware of that, but it happened like 2 months ago or something like that. It was this software built to spy on specific devices, and basically hacker building this malicious software are exploiting vulnerabilities on the devices. So basically, if the producers do not make patches, do not correct these vulnerabilities, you can always use that malicious software for every same model of the device that you are using. Okay, so imagine you're just spreading this spyware there, you're just targeting some people, and in this case journalists, and you're spying on them. It's really a bad thing, because they are like protected by some freedom of expression, and they are doing their job, so they have some kind of protection. It's like you go to war and you're a journalist, you're a protected person. Okay, so they have rights. They have a lot of rights, many rights, protected. They are protected people. And Joseph, you said that yes, there are some people that are more in danger than other people, because these kind of jobs are really sensitive jobs, because with the with the news you can control and make people understand what is happening somewhere. But think about somebody that doesn't like you telling the whole world what is happening in your country, for example, how you treat your prisoner of wars, or how you treat women, on how's the situation on the ground. Because yes, internet connects us all, but we don't have control on the information. So if we see an information, we should fact check those information if they're real, because sometimes we just share news without not even reading it and without knowing if those news are real. So this is really the problem here. And those people, there are some non-governmental organizations that are basically working a lot with making people aware of, for example, sharing contents, fact-checking news, and making people aware of what a ransomware is. Why ransomware should not, hit hospitals, for example. It's, of course, they should not hit hospitals because there are people dying there, and you could, and through your cyber operation, you could kill dozens of people, right? If you're like basically blocking the activities of an hospital, just maybe for 3 hours, or maybe just for a night. And yes, there are so many non-governmental organizations that are right now starting to make people aware of the cyber risks, even using weak password. It might seem stupid, but I would say that 80% of the cyber attacks, the malicious software, are not even exploiting the devices with some really smart software or whatever. They're just stealing your really weak password, or maybe guessing your really weak password. I can guess a password before spending a fortune by producing a really powerful software. I would do the only thing that would not even take me so much time. I would try to guess your password, and if it's easy to guess, I will log in without not even spending a dime. It's so easy. So even covering your camera, using strong password, and all these little things together are making the work for hackers really harder, okay, out there. So basic digital knowledge is super important, even for common people, because common mistakes are, making the life so easier for hackers. And this is, imagine if a municipality is using a weak password. They would, one guy that is basically logging and guessing the weak password, one hacker, it doesn't even have to be a hacker. You can just go to YouTube or somewhere on the internet and just watch a guide on how to guess, or where to get a software to guess passwords automatically. You can just easily get into, Venice municipality if they have a really weak password. And there you can still modify, read everything you want and everything you can find when you log in. And usually, hackers are targeting specific people because by socially following them, they know that this guy is the responsible for the IT security. Maybe he's not that good, and he's writing their passwords on his wall, and so they will check on Facebook if he posted some pictures of him on his job place, and check if on the wall there is a password written, and they would just copy that password and would get the login in their services. So it's so easy sometimes, but if you do this really easy step, you can really make a difference, because if you started to use a strong password, other people would do the same. If you start covering your camera for security reason, well, this is just for your security, of course, but you make people aware that these risks are real. As I was telling you before, when this is not in the real world, when these crimes are happening on the internet, nothing seems real and nothing seems a threat. But your data are already out there. And for data, I mean also the picture that you posted on Facebook, they're already out there, and you decided to post them, but sometimes you don't realize.
Thank you very much for your answer. I think it was just great, and I think that we all need to have more of basic knowledge of how to use the internet, and also how to protect ourselves when we're out there in this untangible cloud, as you have called it several times. I just would like to ask everyone, if someone has, I don't know, any questions, feel free just to write it down in the chat, or maybe just to activate the microphone and then just ask the question. I think this is the perfect opportunity to do so, since we're actually coming to an end with this very interesting and enriching conversation.
Yeah, feel free to ask really anything, because there is no right or wrong questions. There is nothing wrong in asking even basic stuff. There is no such basic thing in cyber. Everything is connected together. And sometimes it's so easy to get access to to others' devices and you don't even know. So really, it's not a really hard field, but it's just how you think about cyber. It's just how you think about online and internet. So really really feel free to ask anything you want.
Yeah, I just think that this is such a complex topic that I'm just wondering if they really have a question, or probably many, but if they do not have any in the time being, I just would like to say thank you very much for all of the things you said. I think I have learned a lot today, and especially I'll think about the way I'm behaving in the cloud, because this is exactly what I think everyone should be doing now, especially after the things you have said. These are probably things we have seen already, I don't know, in the internet, or we have heard about these things already, but we don't really pay attention. So we have a question right here.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for this conference. It was really interesting, and just like Joseph said, I will be more careful maybe and change my passwords a bit more. And I was just wondering, since we don't really know what kind of data can be stolen, and we just receive a notification saying, okay, the data have been stolen, is there like a way to get those back, or once it's out there, it's like too late?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and the answer, unfortunately, if your data are out there, there are no possibility that you can erase them, because you don't know who copied them, how many copies, how many backups do they have of your data. You don't have an assurance that they would erase your data if you, for example, pay a ransom or pay something, or if they steal your data, you don't know where they are. Because, you know, there is actually right now a really nice online website that that a guy called Troy Hunt run and build it, and basically is a kind of repository where all the data breach that we know, because there are so many data breach that we don't know that happen. So basically, it's collecting all the data from previous data breaches. And when a data breach happens, I mean, data breach means that, you know, somebody went into a server and steal all this data and make them available somewhere. Okay, so when there is a data breach, he put this data breach and the data that has been stolen into his website. And then you go to his website. It's free. You can do it right now if you want. It's called Have I Been Pwned? Pwned with the PWNED. Have I Been Pwned? You put your email address there, and you know that, and you will know, he will tell you if your email address has been breached, for example, or if it's a part of a past data breach. You can do it right now with all your email that you have. And it's insane how many times your email has appeared in a data breach. I have a really old email. It's a hotmail.com. So it's a really old email address that I am using as a, you know, when you have to subscribe to newsletter and stuff like that. And I have put that, you know, email address onto that website, and my email address appeared in 7 or 8 data breaches in the past. So that specific data, but it's really in a way it's understandable, because since it's a really old email, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the security of the system was not a priority for anybody. Okay, not even for the private companies, not even for the governments, because it was so costly. So it costed a lot. Okay, and people didn't really feel that it was so important to protect their servers, and it was not a priority. So it's understandable that my really old email has been contained in a list of data that has been stolen and that appears somewhere. And yeah, there is no way you can get your data back, or better, there is no way that you can be sure that your data will be erased once a data breach happens. Yes, that's bad. I know it's so bad, but it's happening like this out there. It's the law of the internet. There are no boundaries, and there is no way you can get all of your data outside the internet,
Yeah, thank you very much for your answer. I'm not sure I'm going to check my current email address, but thank you.
I will try to share the website right now on the chat. Here we go. You can try real time. It's super easy. Here we go. Copy and paste. Done.
I am also going to try it later on. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Emily, very much for your question. It was indeed very interesting. And I was actually asking myself exactly the same thing. Another thing is that no one has asked any questions or written down any questions. So I guess that, oh, someone has a question. Sorry, Miguel. Go ahead if you want. Or just write it down. It depends on you.
No, it's a pleasure to be on live and show my face. So thank you so much. Sorry, I already forgot Samuele. Thank you very much. It was really interesting. Also, I have to say that I don't have a particular esteem for the institution called NATO. So I think should not exist since 30 years. But I expected to find another, when I imagine somebody working for NATO, but okay, you work for a think tank working for NATO. So I really appreciated your, I don't know, I liked your person. So apart from this, and also in this, from this point of view, so when we think about cybersecurity, and also we think about the point of view of the state or of the company, or the security of the state of the company. My point of view is always like, when we talk about security, even in international relations, like it's whose security. So it's generally about security of states and security of national states, security of big companies. And in this, you made the reference to individual security, but also related from the point of view of our individual security, from the point of view of hackers that could, through some breaches, get access to our data. But my point of view is a little bit different. So what about our individual security from the point of view of the data that we personally and voluntarily provide to companies and to the state, and what they legally, so without breaches, without hacking, they legally, the big institutions, the legal institution, can do with that data. And okay, this is related with privacy. We know that European Union is trying to do as much as possible to do to that, but until a point, we know that there are big pressures from big data companies like Amazon and Google, and this to push always the boundaries about this. And we know how much of a nightmare it is to get into. I use DuckDuckGo, and I always try to cancel my cookies and everybody. It's a nightmare every time to access a website and to have to refuse all the cookies and stuff. So yeah, from this point of view, I don't have exactly a question, but if you see my point of view, like what are the risks? And as we care about, just as individual citizens, about security, and we don't necessarily have to trust big companies, and not even the state. I don't necessarily have to trust my state or whatever other state. So what can we do in that sense? I've been thinking now about Green Pass and this kind of stuff about privacy. Yeah, so I'm just curious, from your point of view, what is your reflection on this, or your point of view? Thank you very much.
No problem. I see your point. I see your point in the sense that when you put your data out there, you don't know how they would use those data, right? So this is your main point. You are kind of asking me, so yeah, but everything is running on services provided through this nice mean of the future called the internet. And in order to give services back to us, they need our data to function, right? Okay, but when you put online your data, you are signing a contract with somebody. Okay, imagine when you have a new smartphone. You set your smartphone for the first time, and then they tell you these are the terms of agreement of Google and stuff like that, and or Apple. Have you ever read those terms and agreements documents? I don't think so. Nobody does.
I try to read, but it's a
and
nightmare.
You don't understand them. You don't understand them. It's a nightmare, right? And that's the main point that I'm trying to make here, is that the states didn't know that this problem would happen. States didn't see it coming. States didn't see that this data could have been used to use our person to make profit. Okay, and this is what you were referring, for example, for the Cambridge Analytica example, for example. This is a real issue. So basically, the data, some personal data that we were giving to social networks were sold without our knowledge to a company that was basically using those data to study our behavior and to offer targeting advertisement. So imagine that I'm saying, I'm posting into a social network that I need a new car. Those data would go to a third company, to a private company. They know that I would need a car, and they would give me back, targeted advertisement. Here's the point. For the context of Cambridge Analytica, the problem was that the user, the first user and the owner of this personal data didn't know that social networks would sell data to a private company. That was the problem. But at this time, when you accept the cookies, for example, and you go on a website, and the website is saying you that these cookies can be used to do these things, okay? Yeah. So cookies can be used. So basically, cookies are your footprints of the internet, right? So what you're doing, what are your how long are you visiting a website? So the time you're staying on a news, the time you use to scroll down from a news to another one, and these cookies, this information, if you're not aware that these information are used to do this stuff, they are illegally doing these things. But right now, okay, there are some laws, and they have been created by the European Union that forced, websites to tell you specifically how they would use your data, okay? So, and the point, you're really right here. you don't know what they did to your data before these laws were coming into place, right? So we cannot know. It's impossible because the internet didn't have rules. Okay, so why? This is why it is so important right now that think tanks and association, non-governmental organizations are studying how people behave on the internet to protect them. And I am supporting your view that I really hate private companies that make profit out of our data. But if you were a private company and you have this possibility to make things happen like this or exploit personal data in this way, okay, and it's not illegal, okay, would you do that? Probably yes. Probably yes, because not only you would give people jobs, because these are big companies, but this is what you do, right? You are analyzing data that at the beginning are scattered, and your job is to make them together and make sense out of this data. So basically, this is just personal data that analyzed together, then make a story, okay? And this is maybe your story, another story, and can be used to give back to your advertisement, or maybe they can be used to track you, because maybe in those data, your smartphone was even sending your position at the moment. And imagine if somebody wants to exploit this information. It's super, super sensitive, this topic. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, but my point of view is not only because, okay, I see Google and Amazon, let's say, as the two most famous big data exploiters, using the data in a statistical way for commercial purposes, for advertising, for
there are so many others. I can tell you, there are so many others. I can tell you.
But at the same time, I'm more, not more, but at the same time, I'm also very skeptical about the idea that the state can profile me. I mean, until a few years ago, the state could not profile me, my movements, my interests, my habits, my political views, my whatever, so much. And I cannot imagine if like Google and the state, Amazon and the state, or other that you mentioned together. So both the statistical profiling tracking and the identitarian individual data that only the state can have, that, okay, legally it's because, okay, we live in a state, so okay, but the whole thing together like provides a thing that is, for me, that's the most scary point and that's what for me means cybersecurity is so I don't know, I think the only way is like to provide as less data as possible, because in the moment you give it, that's it, and you never know how much and how far away and for how long they will be kept in archives.
Exactly. And I want you to focus about these things. If one entity wants to profile you, they can do it in so many ways. Cyber made that easier, okay? But why? Because it's exploiting your ignorance in the cyber environment. It is exploiting your weaknesses in the cyber environment. Okay, but it's the same as if somebody wants to, you have a locker and they want to get into your locker. There is no perfect locker. If a guy is skilled enough to, to pick that locker and, open your locker by, destroy the lock you put on that locker, it depends on their skill. But I can tell you, if I want to profile you, I would find so many ways. And cyber is just one way. And that's why you have to be careful of what kind of information you're sharing. What kind of information do you want to, provide to the other people? What kind of information you're sharing with the other people, and who is your friend or is not your friend? Maybe somebody that is your friend can exploit the data that you give them. But this is also happening in the real life. Cyber is just one mean. But these things that you told me are just maybe happening in a faster way, in a quicker way. But really, this can be translating also into the real life and not just on the internet. So these problems, you have it, they always existed. just like espionage. But now it's easier, right, to spy on people if you're not paying attention.
Thank you so much.
No
Maybe
problem.
I will put in touch. I will be in touch with you further if I can. It'll be my pleasure.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you, Miguel, for your questions and for that little discussion that took place in the meantime. But unfortunately, we have got to end this meeting. It's been over an hour, but I just would like to thank everyone who decided to join, and especially Samuele. Thank you very much for this. And I also want to thank Emanuele Kizzani. He was the second moderator. He was just that supporting me. And I just wanted to say thank you. So I wish you all a very, very good evening, and please take care. And thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. See you next time. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.